All right, why exploring in Elden Ring feels so good analysis. I'm actually really intrigued by this video because as many of you guys who know, who have watched me, while I've really enjoyed Elden Ring and I love the story and I love the lore and I love the combat and the bosses and everything, the exploration of Elden Ring has actually not been my favorite. I have not been enthralled by it, but I think some other people have been. And it's not been like the highlight of the game for me by any measure of the means. So I'm really intrigued to see this guy's point of view and see if it kind of changes my mind or makes me rethink some things. Um, so this is going to be checking out. It's by Writing on Games. I've seen a few of his other videos in the past. So yeah, let's go ahead, get past the Patreon and get into this.
On with the show. Of all the untold riches that lie within the staggeringly huge world of Elden Ring, the treasure chest tucked away in the unlikeliest of places, the NPC with a...
By the way, guys, I went and looked at it. We were looking at it on stream earlier. Someone has figured out that the map is roughly 79 kilometers, like an area, which is like a good bit bigger than like GTA 5, which I'm pretty sure is only like 50, 60 or something like that, right? So this map is fucking huge.
Labyrinthine quests standing in some gazebo in the middle of nowhere for some reason. The discovery that's really excited me over my 40 hours of playtime are these seemingly daft wee telescopes dotted around each major area of the lands between. Originally writing them off as offering little in the way of actual mechanical benefit, indeed, they've become as much a marker of my progress through the world as the lost grace checkpoints I've been activating along the way, reflecting a playstyle that has focused less on Elden.
I'm not gonna lag, bros. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no idea what those telescopes do. I got no idea what he's talking about with those telescopes. If anyone knows what those telescopes do, please tell me, because I got no idea what he's talking about.
Elden Ring's near perfect action than I thought would be the case when I started, in favor of a mindset where, more so than any Souls game before it, exploration of the world is both the tactical, satisfying challenge and reward in and of itself. See,
I mean, that's fair. It's definitely better than previous Soulsborne.
Ridiculously early in the game and emerging in basically hell, a completely different, altogether more sinister skyline.
Yeah. Brother, I did the same thing and I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I cried.
Appropriately signaling the threats that lay before me, wondering what I was actually meant to do, but somehow making it out alive. That delightful push and pull between being somewhere I shouldn't be, and yet realizing I could survive it, at least long enough to cowardly escape to relative safety, sparked in me a need to see how far I could venture into Elden Ring's hostile world, regardless of how ready I was to actually be in those areas. To trek through the fog of war to get a map marker, analyze the topography to get a sense of the path I'd need to take to get to the next area, and just ride into the distance on my trusty steed Torrent. It's important to understand that one of my favourite parts of most of the Soulsborne games is that knowledge that the world is so naturally interconnected that at multiple points you're able to gaze into the distance from some newly gained vantage point and think, I started way over there and now I'm here. That's what I fought through to get here. A true visual
That's a very good point. I will respect that, and the reason why is when I was on Elden Ring earlier and I had made it past Lendell Capital and everything, like I was looking back at the map and we were talking about like the early areas and how long it takes to get through it. There was a sense of accomplishment of getting past those areas. So that's a fair point, kind of seeing how far we've come.
Indicator of what felt like a major accomplishment. But those telescopes in Elden Ring, completely unassuming in their placement within the world, take that feeling and amplify it to a degree that's kind of hard to comprehend. No longer are you merely thinking, wow, I was at the top of that rickety pile of wood and now I'm at the bottom. You instead think, I previously conquered that massive fortress over there that felt like it would constitute an entire level in Demon Souls, traveled miles and miles since, and seen all this utterly majestic stuff just dotted along the way that makes that previous fortress feel tiny and bland by comparison. And what's more, I still have all of this ahead of me. Somehow this already terrifyingly huge...
Okay, I'm agreeing with this so far. I wouldn't constitute. I don't know. Maybe he and I have different definitions of like what the exploring is. Because for me, like I see those things off in the distance in my mind. Like I see those big structures. I'm like, I gotta go there. That's a quest spot. Like that's a main quest or a side quest, or there's like that's a point of interest. And maybe to the degree that is like going to exploring, but when I think of exploring, at least with Elden Ring, it's like going through and like checking like almost every nook and cranny and going through and seeing what this cave leads to, what this does, everything like that. Like the more small spots, not the giant, fortresses that you're just like, yeah, there's gonna be a main boss there. You know what I mean? Like that's different, right? Like I saw like the big like academy where Renala is, and I was like, yeah, there's gonna be a boss here. Like they're gonna have a great rune. Like we're gonna do that. And like going through the actual dungeon, like that exploration was really satisfying. The actual like roaming around the world and trying to find things for me was less so. So maybe we're having a different interpretation of exploration, and I think if we're aligned there on what that is, like how I'm viewing it and like how he's kind of explaining it is how I view it, not what I thought he was talking about. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's some alignment there. I will say this underground area though was actually kind of cool to kind of, just because it was like kind of small and self-contained, it was a bit more enjoyable.
Landmass just keeps expanding.
It threw me
the
off.
Actual border of the map just keeps growing. Where will it end? I have to know. I've ridden past large-scale battles involving multiple unique factions, with minion-level enemies fending off towering giants. I've constantly fought off and run away from untold monstrosities that honestly wouldn't feel
Fuck
out of
those
place
birds,
in Bloodborne,
bro.
and that would surely annihilate me in one hit. Were I to slow down and figure out what they actually were, I can ride and ride and ride and not come close to hitting an actual border of the game world.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, just like seeing this area and everything. The atmosphere of this game is so good, guys. Like the art style and art direction, how they make you, like it is encapsulating, and it draws you in. And the games I think of that have done this well in the past, in my opinion, was Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. That was another game that I just felt immersed into the game. That's the way I was looking for. And honestly, New World, I was very immersed in the game of New World.
Itself enticing me to carry on with my journey. Just one more lost grace, I'd find myself saying. I've ridden through valleys so cavernous that the attempts at jump scares you'd previously find in cramped dungeons, where you'd see a message saying, "Be wary of left," and a daft wee monster would pop up to have a go, are now the realm of huge armored beasts just waiting around the corner of some giant vertical rock face. On every level, Elden Ring represents a shift in the kind of
still have the
scale
jump
of
scares.
grandeur that we've come to expect from these games. And just witnessing it all happening around you takes that familiar Soulsborne sensation that you're merely a speck in this world that cares little about your presence, that the beauty you're experiencing is always mere steps away from violently turning on you, and cranks it up to 11. You can perhaps see this most
That sense of immersion and just intensity, I agree with. And if that's how he's talking about like exploring in Elden Ring, I would agree with that, because that's a point. If I'm not sure if I'm necessarily conceding it, because I never like changed my mind, because I just agree with it, but in a sense of in terms of a point for exploration, I would concede that one.
most acutely in the game's
Not that I'm against exploration. I just personally like. Okay, let me expand on my thought here. With Elden Ring exploration, for me, like these big structures and going to go to them and everything like that, like I guess like that's like main exploration. I'm cool with the main exploration. I've enjoyed the main exploration. The side exploration I've been less than thrilled about and have not enjoyed. And these are the smaller structures and smaller locations. They've always kind of just felt a little empty to me. And with such an open world where you just have these like pockets of like important locations, with how big it is, it's been hard for me to be enticed and excited by the smaller locations. It made them feel very empty and hollow, and then everything in between these little pockets of small and large points of interest has just felt like just, okay, I get to ride torrent for a few minutes. Not really like a crazy thing. You know what I mean?
Pillar,
it's hard to explain my feeling.
The Erd Tree. Again, in prior Souls games, it can sometimes be difficult to really know what it is you're fighting towards, what your ultimate objective might be. But here you have a landmark that is so imposing, its golden light so searing the entire landscape, that it's easy to see why the people of this world seem to so fervently worship it, despite the rest of the environment being so riddled with decay. The Erd Tree's glow is downright cleansing, rendering said decay as almost fairy tale-esque at points. You can't help but be enticed by this thing, the growing extent to which it fills up your screen.
Based.
Again, a keen reminder of how far you've progressed,
based, bro.
despite knowing full well that in typical Souls fashion, it isn't going to be some happy ending when you get there. It's just that there's an artistry to how all this stuff is created and presented that goes way beyond From Software's prior work. It means that even in the game's most truly cursed areas, the ones in other Souls games whose grime and rot generally see players wince upon having to go through them, desperate to feel something as previously insignificant as the sun of Firelink on their character's face once more, as the oppression of their surroundings grinds them into the ground, here retain such grandeur, are bathed in such rich, violent crimson, tinged with that dazzling golden hue, that I could come across places with names like the Stench Rot Gullet Hut of Corpses, and I'd still be wistfully gazing out into the distance as if I'd come across some beautiful vista, as opposed to the bloated, bulging mass of debris that actually lays before me,
bro.
the Earth's intestinal lining erupting out of the ground. The scale here is so humbling that I'd look upon all these wretched sights with absolute awe. A field of crucifixes upon which hang multiple dead giants, upside down and hacked to bits. These are enemies that previously crushed me as if I were an ant under their boot, and yet something out there, something whose size or shape or strength I have no way of even envisioning at this point, is able to tear these beasts to shreds and put them on display as a warning for would-be trespassers. I shouldn't be in this area, and yet I'm desperate to know more. These sights are utterly gruesome, and yet
That just made me feel warm in my chest. I like that. I like that spot he was talking about there, with like how you see like the giant and seeing that, like that kind of feeling. I definitely have had that, and I don't think I've ever actually noticed that before.
I can't look away. I know that what awaits me at my destination is pain
This is a
and
weird
despair,
village, bro.
and yet
The
I am
windmill place,
endlessly drawn
the
like a moth
dancing.
to a
I
flame.
don't like
Long
it. It's
story
freaking me
short,
out.
I've kind of just spent most of my time riding around a lot and looking at stuff. The same way I might play a game like Journey or Sable, and it's been
Okay, so this is the interesting difference, I think, and maybe this is just how we play the game, is I appreciate that, but I don't just journey around in it. Like, I don't do like a journey where I'm just running around, just seeing it and checking. Like, I try to have a purpose with my movement in this game, and maybe that's because my time's so limited nowadays. It's hard for me to just want to just run around, just see shit. Like, for me, it's like I'm appreciating it on the way from like point A to point B. Maybe that's not the way everyone plays, but like that's how I've been doing it. So I think that's where he and I kind of line up, but then also like differ.
ridiculously fun. But that's not to say that riding through these areas I haven't been doing any fighting. Quite the opposite, in fact. And it's been an absolute blast to be able to get to these late game areas and see how long I can hold my own against the onslaught. A true triumph when I use what limited skill I've developed over years of playing these games to take down the vastly overleveled enemy in my path. It's just that when I do come up against that insurmountable barrier, one that simply won't budge no matter how hard I push against it, I can not only run away from most encounters should I so choose, allowing me to save the runes I built up while getting there, but I also now have a wealth of lost grace checkpoints built up along my journey, so it doesn't take long for me to go back through and find the point where I can really hone my current combat abilities and find all the many pathways and entire areas I'd missed my first time through. In a way, they finally did it. FromSoft finally made a game where the ability to warp between any checkpoint at any time didn't hinder that gloriously organic, interconnected world design that some fans might.
Wait, is this okay? This must be the what's it called, telescope thing then.
Myself
That he's
included,
looking at
have
here.
been lamenting since Dark Souls 1, and in fact,
All right, I'll
given
have
the
to find
nature
one.
of the
I'll have to
every
find
nook
one. I don't
and
think I've
cranny
ever actually
approach
looked at
Elden Ring
one.
takes with exploration, it actually enhances that feeling when you come across a seemingly random tiny trinket in this massive expanse of land and realize it reminds you of a similarly minuscule object you saw on the completely opposite end of the map, and you immediately get to connect those dots mechanically. For me, Elden Ring has been as much a sightseeing tour as an action game, one where the sights in question rival the most sublime visuals I've seen in any game prior, let alone Souls. But trust me when I say exploring like this is a style of play that goes beyond mere spectacle, one that loses none of the tension you'd typically associate with the series' trademark encounters. Instead, it's just a different kind of tension, one that speaks to just how thorough a job From Software did in accounting for the changes needed to turn a Dark Souls game into a true open world experience. In other words, I may not care too much about the actual story stuff here.
Oh, maidenless, bro. Maidenless.
You know, the typical Dark Souls thing, but George R.R. Martin swapped the names around a bit, because through this increased emphasis placed on exploration,
no, the story's
in a way
been
that breaks off
great.
from tradition
Oh, even
of
the
these
side
games being
stories, bro. It's
relentlessly
been great.
uncompromising, I feel like through my playstyle, I've been able to create my own story in Elden Ring, experiencing the lands between on my own terms. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like,
Oh, that's it. Wow, I didn't realize you had such a long outro. Okay, this definitely hit me well. This definitely hit me well. I see the points he's making with the exploration and how in his the way I would summarize his argument almost. I'm not going to say it's an argument, but like the way he sees it is as he's exploring and he sees these grand things is really helping build him up and immerse himself in the game by being able to conquer these these landmarks and explore and kind of build up this momentum and build upwards and that just feeling of growth. I think that's how I interpret how he's been feeling in terms of the exploration, and I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with honestly really anything in this video. Um, and yeah, I made my points already. So no, this was enjoyable. This put a nice warm feeling in my chest, guys. So I can't say I dislike this one. This was good. This was good.